All right, so I'm just gonna show us the high squat.
Let's go!
500 pounds. All right, so I just want to see what you're moving like right now. Okay. Now, let's come over here and view this from the side. Now, the big thing that I like to show people is when you view your squat for the first time or you're having someone analyze your squat, look at it from the side, because what I want you to see is where's that barbell tracking. Now, ideally, that barbell should track right over the middle of your foot, right? And if it does, it's showing that your body is in balance, right? Because during during a body weight squat, right, your center of gravity is a little bit lower. That's why most people have a more inclined trunk. During a barbell squat, this bar is going to be loaded with weight. It becomes your center of gravity, right? If it's over the middle of our tripod, we're in balance. We're able to produce efficient force and power, right? So as he squats, let's watch where that bar goes. Now, he's also squatting right now, right, in his nanos, and where's that bar? A little bit towards his toes, okay? Now, here's the one thing. If we put him in a heeled weightlifting shoe, it would allow his knees to go further forward over his toes. His chest would be more upright, and that bar would then be over the middle of his foot a little bit better. Right. So that's why I love getting people in a pair of weightlifting shoes whenever they're squatting high bar or front squat, right? Because we need a more we need a more upright trunk, and I want you, that's the difference between barbell squatting and body weight squatting, is when you barbell squat, I'm looking to have you maximize your current capabilities. When you body weight squat, I'm trying to illuminate the problems in your movement that we can fix. Now we got a barbell on our back, it's time to perform. It's okay to turn those toes out slightly if you need to for ankle mobility, maybe to get your body in a more efficient position to be able to create some torque, right? So we got a couple things I like to do. First thing is the foot, right? It's okay to turn your toes out slightly, right? Because I want you, again, to be able to squat as deep as possible with a more upright chest. And for some people, turning your toes out a little bit allows you to do that, okay? So the difference, again, between body weight and barbell training, okay? Step two, where's our foot? Do we have a tripod foot, or is our foot collapsed in? Okay. Step three, let's create a little torque at those hips. So getting those knees in line, sort of squeezing the butt can sort of align those knees with the toes. Okay. Step four, we're going to make sure that that hip engages slightly back. Now here's the deal. The amount of hip hinge is going to be predicated on your athlete's lever lengths, right, and the type of squat you're doing. If you're doing a high bar squat,
it ain't that much.
It's not that much.
People think like hips back.
Exactly. Oh. I'm not having them do a huge, because try that. Try a huge hip hinge. Where'd that bar go? That bar went right towards the toes and he's off balance. It's not a huge hip hinge, but the hips have to engage first. Because here's the deal. When an athlete squats poorly, they move from the knees first. And what happens is that the ankles flex, the knee went forward, your body weight just shifted towards your toes. Right? Now, the original cue, right, is don't let your knees pass your toes, right? Now, the person who probably started that cue was probably like a well-intentioned physical therapist or doctor, had an athlete who squatted, their knees came forward first, they developed some knee pain, so he goes, hey, don't let your knees pass your toes. What happens?
Everybody just takes it.
Exactly. They learned to squat very hip dominant, right? Now they don't have any knee pain. We fixed it, right? Not the case. What we just did was we fixed the symptom of the knees moving first. The problem is his balance, right? So those knees need to come forward eventually. By engaging those hips first, right? Sitting them back, we turned on the posterior chain, the glutes and the hamstrings. We limited premature forward movement of the knees. Now he's safe, he's balanced. Now squat down, let those knees come forward at the bottom. Those are safe to be in that position at the very bottom. I just don't want them to come forward that early. Does that make sense?
Okay. It's like, you ever played a game telephone? it's like somebody said something and then they told it somebody else and then they told it somebody else, and by the end of it, it's like totally different from what it was intended.
Now, last thing we should talk about is how do you breathe during a squat, right? Because that's a big thing a lot of people don't know. Now, if we're doing a light squat, it's not the biggest deal because you can probably stay strong enough to not breathe fully, right?
I would say you almost need to get in the habit of doing that, though.
Exactly. So I like to teach people how to squat every single time. What we need to do is learn how to breathe into our belly, right? So what you're going to do, put your hand on your stomach.
Now, why do we want to do that?
So I tell you. Breathing into your belly. Let me tell you.
Let me tell you now.
Let me tell you something. Breathing into your stomach is going to allow you to breathe with your diaphragm, right? Most people, when they take a big breath, they do what? Chest breathe. They chest breathe, right? You're not using your diaphragm enough. When you belly breathe, you breathe into your stomach, you're letting your diaphragm descend, right? Now you're not breathing into your stomach, all your air is staying in your lungs, right? But your abdominal cavity is expanding, right? And then when you brace on top of that, like someone's about to jack you right in the stomach, and you create that firm sort of cylinder feel, you increase your intra-abdominal cavity pressure, right? And that stabilizes your core like crazy, right? Back a long time ago, physical therapists were very big on the TA, transverse abdominis, right? They said that was the main muscle that created core stability, right? There was a lot of research that said that whenever people did these type of quick movements, they had healthy people, they had people with back pain do this, right? And the people with back pain, the TA was just a little bit slower turning on, right? But I think what they were looking at was the wrong thing, right? They were looking at one specific muscle when in fact all the muscles, they play a part on the team. There's not one team member that's more important than the others, right? So if you see, right, your regular gym goer, and they're just doing straight curls, just working on that rectus, they're only working one of the team members, right? All of them have to work together to create that core stability. So you breathe into your stomach, you're gonna feel your stomach expand, your lateral ribs expand, and then you brace over to the top really strong.
And it ain't gonna look sexy, you're gonna get this big ass
It's
belly.
gonna look a little weird.
And also too, I guess when you try to chest breathe, it could throw off how you're setting your midline. And
Exactly, so that's the big thing too, is when you're doing this, it's not, right? Because what you just do, you just put a ton of hyperextension in your spine. That spine should stay locked. It's not a huge movement. For some people it is, because they can really push out a lot. For some people it's just a little bit, but if you learn to breathe, brace, and then squat, your spine is gonna be so unstable, it's gonna really help you back.
So maybe walk through that process real quick, maybe to set up on the bar. Because this is a big thing. Like a lot of people don't set up and don't breathe. And
Exactly, they think that they can just...
at the bottom, it's done.
Exactly. So he's gonna take his steps back, right? So from right here, he's going to breathe into his stomach, brace really hard. This whole area just became rock hard. And then he's gonna set his hips back and squat. Now here's the thing, he's not going to let that air completely out until he reaches past that sticking point, right? So on the way up, then you can let out, right? If you let that air out too soon, right, you just let all the air out of the balloon, and you just lost your intra-abdominal cavity pressure. So that's why a lot of guys, they'll grunt on the way up, that Valsalva maneuver.
I thought it was just cool, you know, like, this looked like a...
let me do Alex real quick. Let me do Alex.
There's nothing wrong with that, right? Because what you're doing,
Planet Fitness instantly.
Verbatim.
So you're still keeping your pressure really high when you do that. Now, if you let it up, you know, let it out on the way up, then definitely you're letting out all that pressure.
Now how does this translate into something like a CrossFit Metcon?
That's gonna be a little bit different. Basically, what I want you to think about doing is that breathe and brace every single time. What I don't want to see is people just letting their air out and then just trying to go rep after rep after rep. You need to be able to keep the pressure really high. Now, some people can get away with taking a big breath and holding it for multiple reps in a row, but they're very, very efficient at maintaining that high level of stability. So,
how do you do it? Like when you...
It depends on the movement. So if it's something like even like a wall ball, you know, or a thruster, like I've just become very comfortable and efficient of maintaining a stable midline, but also breathing through the belly, just because I want to stay efficient. Like if I'm breathing on every rep and everything's moving around, like
it takes a lot of practice.
For sure. So that's the best advice I would say. Is practice.
Now, do any of you guys lift with a belt on?
Hold on. When there's weight on this bar, I'll turn it on me so you can hear. When there's weight on the bar, like it's getting pretty heavy, do you get tight before you even unrack it?
Yeah, for sure. I'll take that big breath and brace before I even unrack the bar. Because here's the thing, right? You don't see anyone, like Ray Williams squatted 1,000 pounds, right? 1,005 pounds last week. Nuts. He didn't get under the bar, walk it out, and then try to set himself, right? He was really, really stiff before he walked it out. Then he got back, retook his breath again, right? You need to be able to organize your body nice and stiff under the bar before you walk it out.
I mean, if you've ever tried to do that, when you go to unrack the bar, it's going to feel heavy on your back. And then at that point, then you're going to be like, oh shit, this is heavy. But if you had got organized before, you go in there and aggressively get set and lift that bar up, it's going to feel a lot lighter.
Yeah, for sure.
You do that because you're trying to eliminate any exhale whatsoever, because if you go to unrack and you just lost that stability you've had, and now that you're under load, it's hard to kind of reset that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
definitely.
Especially max effort.
Yeah.
So you're about to talk about the belt.
Yeah, so do you guys use a weightlifting belt?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So do we have one here that we can throw on?
I have one over here.
Yeah. So the big thing is a lot of athletes think that they're wearing a belt correctly.
I was like, what are you doing here?
They think they're wearing their belt correctly by just wearing it really, really tight, okay? Now, the belt is just like adding another layer of muscle across our abdominal cavity. So we need to be able to breathe into the belt for it to...
I got you.
For it to be used effectively, right?
Yeah.
So whenever you're under the bar, right, you need to have your stomach almost push into the belt. So it's on tight, but then when you breathe, you should expand your stomach and feel like it's pushing against all edges of the belt. And then you're gonna be able to increase that spinal stability to an even greater degree.
Where should that belt be? Because I see a lot of people wear it wrong.
Exactly. You want it to be, usually most people right around your belly button.
Yeah,
you don't want
I'd
it
say
too
the
low.
belly button.
I wear mine lower.
Yeah, it's all
like,
about feeling the most comfortable with it.
I can still put pressure in it when it's almost across my lumbar.
Yeah.
Because that's where I feel like I have the most issue with stability sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. Everyone's gonna be a little bit.
I mean, is there a right or wrong?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is if it's not being used effectively, you're gonna be able to see that person's losing their stability a lot sooner.
Do you recommend people, because
so
I get a lot of questions about people like, should I use the belt or not? Should I ever even
For sure.
try to use the belt?
This is the big thing I say. When you're looking for performance gains, a belt is awesome, right? It's been shown in research, you're gonna have more power for longer duration.
For years, I didn't use a belt, and I added a belt, and I'm like, oh, 20 pounds
Exactly.
on
And
the squat.
some people, they could squat forever without a belt. That's okay. But there's nothing wrong with using a belt. And a lot of times it's really gonna help you know, improve your stability with it. So the big thing I like to say is if you're gonna use a belt, don't rely on it, right? Learn to squat without it, and then also learn to squat with it. So like for myself personally, I have maxes that I remember, right? For like my 8 rep max with the belt, 8 rep max without a belt, right? So you're always training with and without it. You don't want to only rely on it.
And those are great, like from a training perspective, that's a great way to like throw in some variation to your training. Like sometimes you do with a belt, sometimes you do without a belt. Like I was doing squat every day, and there'd be times where we front squatted with a belt and without a belt. So I think doing that is great.
Yeah, for
sure. You know what? The truth is, like, I trained all summer long, did a weightlifting cycle, did all the strength work with a belt, and then I just got back from a 2-week vacation, was overseas, didn't have any equipment, wore flats, didn't wear a belt, and I lifted pretty heavy a couple of days and felt fine. Like, I didn't feel like I was dependent on the belt. I don't feel like using it all summer made me weaker.
You shouldn't use it as a crutch. For sure. That's the biggest thing, is a lot of athletes, they have to have their belt, right? You should be able to lift without it, and then when it's time to go 100%, it's all right to use it then. Yep, that's the biggest message.
All right, guys, appreciate you watching. Make sure you go check out the podcast that we did with Aaron. Also check out the Nuggets and Pearls. We took a lot of the questions that you guys had and asked him in person, and we did a cool live Q&A.
Subscribe and click like if you like this shit.